Our practice is switching to a different EHR system this year. How will that affect our MIPS submission?
Great question, Ann. A change of EHR certainly creates some challenges. It can affect the data completeness criteria, rendering a submission invalid. And it can dramatically affect your performance levels from changes in documentation and query standards, even if your performance hasn't changed, your true performance hasn't changed. So on the data completeness criteria, to the extent that your patient panel doesn't all have data in the new system, you may not be reporting on all of them, and that can be a failure of data completeness. And that's whether you choose the original EHR or the new EHR to report from. Neither will have a complete set of data, and both then will have some potential failures of data completeness. Now, if 70% of your patients are reflected in either the first or the second, that could be a valid submission from a single one of the EHRs for that year. And in performance, you might get hit in either of two ways. One, if you don't have access to the performance data on one platform for all of your patients, then your parent performances may be quite low, even though your real performance is higher, or the documentation protocol for in this new HR is different. You might not be as good at it, or even if you know exactly where it should be put, those fields may not be captured appropriately in the reports, and therefore hurting your performance. So there's two solutions generally to improve that. First, migrate the data from the old EHR to the new. That means that everything you've done in the past is reflected in the new EHR. A single submission from that EHR will suffice to both hit the data completeness criteria and your performance criteria. Now, many people don't choose to migrate the data when they're changing EHRs. They instead keep an archive version of the old EHR available that they can get the data from, and finding it not cost compatible. It's cost prohibitive, in fact, to migrate the data. If you haven't migrated the data, then your best alternative solution, again, if there's at least 70% of your data is in one, you could do a single submission from one of those with some mathematical hazards to watch for. But I think our methods of submitting data handle that quite well. So if you're using us, we can easily take your data from both systems, combine it, and put it out as a combined submission. And it doesn't work to take your two EHR submissions, to generate the ECQMs from both and put them together. Medicare wants those patient populations blended and deduplicated. And so you can't just take the QRDA3 scores and add the numerators and denominators. But in our methodology, we'll take a download from each of those and big raw data sets with the performance data embedded and the patient identifiers embedded. And it doesn't matter how many EHR systems you have, we can put those together. And that can work both as well for practice that changes EHRs in mid-year, as well as in other organizations, ACOs or group data submissions in which there are multiple EHRs in the group that's submitting together. It's our systems are designed to take as many data feeds as necessary to create that single submission. So we can help with that. And of course, knowing that any EHR has all EHRs have problems with data integrity, even if it reflects well in the visit note and your look back at what happened in every visit. not always is the data available to your query tools, and therefore watching your data throughout the year is quite important. And our more aggressive clients will drill through their data periodically. It might be monthly, it might be quarterly, maybe only twice a year, uh, uh, but they'll look at that data. They'll collect a sample of patients who fall into the performance met, performance not met, and audit those a handful of those charts to make sure that the query is appropriately capturing the data that puts patients in those areas. So we're delighted. That's how we're designed to work, and we're delighted to help you with that. So give us data early, measure often, audit to make sure the right stuff is getting through, and you've got all your templates in your database set up appropriately.